Cyndy, thank you so much for joining this call, and I appreciate you carving out some time to give us some feedback about product services that you've experienced in the last 5 or so years being with Vivant. But before we start, I'd like to better understand what do you do and how many stores do you have, and give everybody a little bit of a context on your business venture.
So my husband Timothy and I own nine Jimmy John's franchise stores. We started in 2012, and we originally lived in Illinois and got started in it from the original process through the Champaign office on Fox Drive. There would be storms, power outages, or just times down when companies were slowing their information systems down and so on. So we looked at several different options. I believe it was AT&T that we had, and we were contacted by Vivant, and so far so good. They've saved us a lot of money.
So that actually, I wanted to get a better understanding of what life was before you guys switched over. You were mentioning that you got a ton of problems, issues, and things were really bad. Can you tell us a little bit more about the time before you switched over?
Yes. So, for example, we have a downtown store, and because of it being in an old district in Huntsville, Alabama, it had bad wiring. The different companies that we were using for our phone systems, Comcast and AT&T, they were not operating to full capacity, and they would cut out, and sometimes the outage would be for 3 to 4 hours, especially during a lunch. And so we would literally have to turn away customers to some degree because we could not process paper tickets fast enough. And there's just not a good way to do that. The process, it takes forever. And with our store doing so much volume, because it was a high velocity store, that specific store is where we first, I believe, looked at Vivant and trying to troubleshoot putting them in. And once we activated that store, then it was like a domino effect. We just decided to carry through the rest of the company and do the rest of our 8 stores, other than the not that specific one. So it so because we would be down and we'd have to do the paper tickets. The paper tickets, in and of themselves, with Jimmy John's, is difficult at best. It doesn't cover LTOs and so on. So it just took so much time to serve a customer, and then the customer would leave because they would be aggravated. You couldn't do a whole lot with helping them because your hands were tied. So now, then when Vivant came through, what the best part was is because they're a cellular data system, that even if the mainstream Wi-Fi goes down and the phone system goes down, we have full access to our POSs. There is no cutout. It automatically switches over. And if there is a glitch, within 30 seconds, you can get someone on the line, and Vivant is already in the background figuring out what's going on and troubleshooting it and fixing it. And it just makes our life so much easier. We don't have to leave our office and go down to the store and try to troubleshoot the Wi-Fi and everything ourselves. They do it all behind the scenes, and it just makes it easier.
100%. I appreciate that. There's so many questions I love to ask. So I'll start with this one. Obviously, you guys have nine or so stores. You can't be everywhere at once. And I'm curious, the value of having a team that is behind the scene working for you as an extension of your team. How has that impacted your life and your husband's life in the business?
Oh, it's taken a big weight off our shoulders. We don't have to worry about having to hire an IT company to come in and fix something that we can't fix, because we're franchisees, we're not IT experts. While Signature System is helpful with just their product, they can't help us troubleshoot anything that is not their own. So it is, IT systems are a beast of themselves. And if you have someone who can master that beast, then it takes a big weight off your shoulders. And it also reduces cost expenditures, because if you're having to hire a separate IT company to come in, once or twice a year to try to fix glitches, then, you spend a ton of money. And then if you have someone that is just maintaining the system and keeping you up to speed on what your system's supposed to be doing. For example, we did have a system that was old, and Vivant was able to troubleshoot it and say, okay, your POS system is what is causing the problem. You need a new one, because it wasn't communicating to the POS through the, so we had to go and buy a new system. And once we did that, that was fine. But your company diagnosed it, because you're able to see that and troubleshoot that in the background.
100%. And then in terms of the outages that were happening previously, what was the business impact? You said, like, obviously a very high volume store. We always ask our clients, like our future clients, prospects, we ask them, give us the worst performing location. And it sounds like you did exactly that. You gave us the absolute worst location that you had. And you said, if you can fix that, then you can fix the rest of them. Obviously that store was super high volume, was doing a lot of traffic. You mentioned briefly the kind of the negative impact, but I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit more, a bit more idea on revenue loss, employee frustration, anything that related to those outages that took away from your life, employees, sales, customer anger, frustration, them leaving, etc.
So when we would have an outage, you would have a line out the door because you had to do paper receipts and, all that. Occasionally you would have issues with the credit cards not ringing up. So then we decided to try to go through and just do cash when we had a shortage. And that was very frustrating for employees, because you literally have to have one person taking those orders. You can possibly have two, but sometimes things get mismanaged and you end up getting someone with the wrong order because things were not processed correctly, or the credit card number gets put on the wrong receipt. You have difficulty in that way. You just have a lot of frustration with the manager and the employees because their hands are tied. They can't help fix whatever's going wrong because it's a digital system something. And then you also have the manager who's also trying to troubleshoot the issue and also take care of the customers and his employees. And when you have a manager that's pulled in several different directions, they get very frustrated. And this wears on a manager. And over years of, constant battling something like this, sometimes managers just, give up and leave, because like you have problems with your system, So we have had issues with managers leaving just because they had issues with their systems and, the digital systems not working right. But, after we got it fixed, there's no problems. We really don't have any problems with our POSs going down. The only time I take that back, the only time we've ever had that is if there was a complete power outage. It would kick off for just a little bit. Vivant kicks in. And if we just don't have electricity going to there and not a backup battery going to our POSs. So, but our phones work. So we still have activity with our phones and the Wi-Fi still works with some degree of battery backup with the Wi-Fi. So.
Absolutely. So obviously employee frustration, a huge fact, lost managers because of that. And I'm curious in terms of like revenue loss, what did that translate in terms of sales? on the employee side, inefficiencies, you're obviously having to pay employees a few $100 an hour combined just to stay there and
Mhm.
deal with that. But what did the revenue loss look like?
Well, so for someone who does about um, a $1,000 or $2,000 lunch, they were losing probably half or more than half of their business when there would be a power outage or a Wi-Fi internet
Internet
outage
outage, yeah.
during the time that this whole thing was going down. And normally it was just a Wi-Fi outage or a phone outage, and they usually were connected. And so one of the things that we would have as the biggest issue is that when this outage would go down, it was 90% of the time going down in our lunch hour. And our lunch hour for our downtown district, other than on Friday night and Saturday nights for our bar crawls, our lunch hours are significant. And because we make anywhere from 16 to 18 a day for our lunch, and the rest is all just trickles in for dinner. But our lunchtime for our downtown is our highest functioning time, and it just hit us really hard every time it was down, and that really cuts into it. And it wouldn't just be like one day every 3 or 4 months. This was almost daily. Right at the very end when we contacted Vivant, it was just almost daily that this was going on. And so it was hitting our wallets pretty hard.
Makes sense. And had you tried anything else before you switched over to us, or did you just immediately switch over?
I think we tried AT&T for about a year, and they said they could fix the thing, and it wasn't. And we were working with Comcast for a while too, and it it just wasn't working. The systems weren't working. They weren't kicking in like they were supposed to. Sometimes we'd be down for an hour or two, but when we switched to Vivant, it's like seconds. It kicks in seconds, and it's just you know we don't have to worry.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the promise. Is you just shouldn't have to think about this stuff. Like you shouldn't. You like I tell all my staff is my job is to give you the right tools to be successful, and part of that job is the infrastructure layer. You have to have reliable internet, computers,
Mhm.
technology pieces that get your job done, and we can't have these outages negatively impact that promise to the employees, which obviously you know firsthand. But I'm curious if you were skeptical before switching to us, especially considering you had gone through Comcast, you had gone through AT&T, and you had negative experience that they promised to deliver, but they couldn't even deliver. So were there any skepticism switching over and saying, "Oh, well, let's try this one and see if this one will work"?
There was a little. We wanted to research it, and we researched it a little bit. I believe that my husband contacted a handful of franchisees that had already been underneath Vivant, and they only had good things to say. So we decided that, again, we'd try it at our downtown store, and then we moved on from there.
Amazing. And then, so now let's go through like the transition. What did that transition look like? Switching from the previous company to us. Did you feel was it seamless? Did you have any issues, or what
Oh,
did that
very
look like during the
seamless.
transmission?
It was very seamless to switch over to Vivant. The main reason why is because all the information was gathered before, and then it was just connecting a device to our system, if I remember right. It's been a while, and then getting on the phone with someone at Vivant. I believe it was John, and we went through the process of all the troubleshooting that we needed to do to hook it up. And if I remember right, it didn't take very long at all. I want to say less than 30 minutes.
Absolutely. Yep. That makes sense. Yeah, setting the onboarding and going through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, fairly easy process. Obviously, we try to handle as much of it possible. We are the subject matter expert, and we want to be part of that team. So we tell all of our customers, the moment you sign on with us, you immediately have 100 employees that work for you. People that you don't have to hire, you don't have to train, you don't have to manage. It doesn't matter if they're calling in sick, not, etc. None of that is acceptable excuse to say, hey, you're down because of this. We just don't tolerate that.
Right.
Now, in terms of after the switchover, how has that impacted life, again, personally for you and your husband, the business and the employees? I want to address that in like 3 different batches.
Well, our staff don't have to worry about anything. Even if there is a small little glitch in something, they know they can pick up the phone. All of our managers have the Vivant number programmed into their phone, and so do our area managers. And if there's a bigger issue, then my husband and I will get on the phone. But typically, most days, there's the business runs smooth. We don't have any more problems. We're using a different phone system now than we had in our downtown store and some of our other stores, because Vivant was able to isolate those troubleshooting problems, and then we were able to go to a better company that ran smoother. I'm not saying that all of their problems are fixed, but because Vivant's our safety net, we don't have any more problems. I think the only problems we typically would have is if we have glitches with our signature system, POS systems, and our computers, just because they're an older model and we're due for an upgrade. So,
You also combined a lot of different services so that I like to get your feedback on consolidation, because you had an internet company, a phone company, you had like some other companies involved for PCI compliance, your certification with like your payment processor. I believe all of that is now consolidated all under one roof, and there's no more finger pointing.
yep.
How has that impacted? Was that a good decision, or how did that impact you guys?
That was a big cleanup at that. It was a huge mess and a huge problem keeping track of all of that. Regardless of, payment, organization and whatnot. And now that it's all in one spot, it's so much easier because we don't have to worry. We'll pay the monthly bills that are due to be paid. But now that if there's a problem with that service, then it's handled very easily. We really don't have any more. I hate to say it, but we don't have any more problems because of Vivant.
And that's what we want. Our promise is that you're dealing with one bill. You don't have to chase people. You don't have to figure out who's the internet provider. And especially as you continue to grow 9 locations, having, 4 or 5 different internet providers, phone service providers, having to manage PCI compliance, it kind of feels like you started a restaurant, but you quickly became a vendor management company that you have to manage all these different vendors just to keep afloat. And it sounds like we've resolved all of that as we had promised.
Yeah. Exactly. It's taken huge headaches away from us and a lot of stress away from us,
Absolutely.
and we really
And this may be
appreciate it.
rhetorical, but obviously I wanted to ask, how has the reliability, but maybe you could touch base a little bit on that, especially that downtown store where obviously you were having a ton of problems. You were having consistent daily or weekly outages. How has that been impacted in terms of uptime?
We really don't have outages anymore. We don't have any downtime anymore. If there's a glitch, it might happen for a few minutes, but maximum a few minutes. We really don't have downtime anymore, and we don't even have time to pull out our toolkit for when we have a down system. We
Amazing.
don't need
That's
it.
great. Now, kind of touching base on support, I believe you mentioned that sometimes you guys call into support. How has your experience been with our support team?
Oh, wonderful. Everyone that we talk to, that you call in for, doesn't matter who it is, they know exactly what to do, how to look and troubleshoot behind the scenes in the background of our system and figure out what's going on. Then if we need to troubleshoot something in the store, they give us specific details on how to troubleshoot so they can see, so Vivant can see what needs to be fixed. And then within minutes, it's back up and running. And usually it's something having to do with our system or our wiring, or, for example, one of our stores got hit by lightning, and the lightning went all the way through our system. And so Vivant was able to troubleshoot what systems got fried and what needed to be replaced and tell us what was good and bad. And it literally took out one of our computers and a few other IT things. And so we were quickly able to get those products. I believe that there was something that was an attachment for Vivant that
Yeah, it was
I
the
think it
main
was
device
the,
actually that runs the
yeah.
store. With the backup, it got fried.
Yeah, but within 24 hours we
Absolutely.
had that. But they fixed it in the background, so we were able to operate until we got that device within, a 1 day, and then we literally switched it out the next day and we
A
were up
hundred
and
percent,
running
and that's
again as
critical
usual.
because obviously we had to wait for that device to arrive. So we put in a temporary solution so that you could continue to operate and not wait a day until the replacement device came in and lose revenue and have to close the store
Exactly.
down, etc. Now,
Exactly.
I've talked
Yeah.
to quite a few of our existing customers that have had the service, and a couple of them actually pointed out, and I'm curious to get your feedback. They said, listen, like Vivant is too good to be true. And you really are not going to find that out until you switch over. And then you're going to tell the next guy the same thing. I know it's too good to be true, but once you try it, you're going to tell the next guy the same thing. I'm curious if that is also your experience.
Well, we did think it was too good to be true, honestly, because we had tried Comcast and AT&T, and I feel like so there's an old saying, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And you were telling us all along, we're a duck. we're not promising you anything that we can't deliver. And literally you delivered. And your system is constantly, your company is constantly perfecting your system and how it works, which we love because you're always, going with the newest technology. And that is impressive also because things are changing every year. But we did think you guys were too good to be true. But once we tried you at our one, downtown store, we had to put you in the rest because we were having a lot of the similar issues, even though they were smaller stores. We were having similar issues. So it's
A
better to
hundred
be
percent.
safe than
So I'm
sorry.
curious in terms of like cost wise, if somebody else is in the same situation and let's say we're about the same price that what they're paying now, would it be worth for them to switch over to
Mhm.
Vivant? What about if it's like 10 or
Oh,
15%
definitely.
more on a monthly basis? Would it be still worth switching over?
Yes, because you're going to save that money in the amount of time that you're going to be down. When you're down, you could lose anywhere from 25 to 30, maybe even 40% of your profit for that day, depending on how long your outage is. And literally, that could be just, one payment for your
Absolutely. And
bond
then if a
bill.
business owner is in the same situation that you were 5 years ago, obviously you guys have been with us for 5 years. That's appreciate the business and appreciate your trust in us. But if another business is in the same situation, what would you recommend to them?
Well, whether they're a franchisee of Jimmy John's or a franchisee or of another company, I think that the best thing for someone to do is to look at the overall cost expenditure of what it would take for them to use this product on an annual basis, and then look back and see how much they have lost over the time that they're out, and configure that cost revenue loss. Once they configure that, they're going to see that they're going to be able to invest in Vivant, and really Vivant's investing into that franchisee because they're the safety net. I feel like there's a relationship that has to be built there. And when you have someone that's got your back in your IT world, you know that that is a stress that is going to be taken off your plate, and therefore you're not just invested as a business, but you become invested as a person that is a friend, if you will. I feel like I know John and you a little bit better over the years, and that, you know, some of your other employees that I've met, and every year you guys bring it, and I'm just so thankful
A
that
hundred
you
percent.
guys
And
have
by the
our
way,
back.
like that is exactly so I'm thrilled to hear what you're saying, because I tell every single one of my employees, these are my stores. I own all of our customer locations, whether it's a restaurant, a dealership, or whatever. These are my businesses, and you're supporting my business. So the way you treat them is exactly as if I own all of them. And that's the expectation that I set forward. And I'm glad that it's trickling all the way down, because it's just totally unacceptable for you guys to lose $1 of revenue because something glitched out. Like in this day and an age of technology, like there are solutions that can be put in place. Obviously, we're always cautious of cost versus
Yeah.
return on investment on the newest technology, but we always tread carefully in the middle of the road to ensure that we guarantee that uptime and ensure you don't lose revenue, your employees don't have to put up with the stress, headache, and obviously your life. I'm sure you have other things to do to build new locations, open new stores, improve operational efficiency, etc. And we just want to be that trusted partner. We want to be that strategic partner that enables you to not deal with the outages, the problems, to protect that revenue and not allow that revenue to go to your competitor. That you can capture that revenue when a customer wants to place an order online. They want to walk in and order and go. Obviously with Jimmy John's, it's very tricky because you're in that freaky fast mode. So they don't want to wait 5 minutes to have that paper written. They just want to come in, order, go, and 2 minutes later they're out the door. So it sounds like we've done our part as a strategic partner to enable you to do that. Is there any
Exactly.
other recommendations for anything else you'd like to add, or anything else for somebody who's on the fence considering Vivon as a solution provider?
The top hits are: you're always available if there's a glitch. You're quick and easy to install. You always have our back if there's troubleshooting. And you guys are easy to deal with. Billing is no problem. A quick email, payment plan, that sort of thing, whatever it is. I mean, you guys have just mainstreamed everything and taken so much stress off our lives. We appreciate you.
We do the same. We appreciate you guys for your support. Thank you so much, Cyndy.